Alright everyone, so thank you for watching another video. What I'd like to do a review on today is actually the Apple Pencil. And the reason that I bought this was actually for video editing primarily. And you may be asking, what's wrong with just using your fingers with the iPad? And the whole thing is whether you're drawing with this or you're using it just as a stylus to select and have better control over what you're trying to click on, it does a very good job. And actually, I'm not much of a drawer at all, so most people I told that I got this were kind of surprised, that I would even entertain buying something like this. But I really wanted this not just for use with video editing, but also if I remote desktop into any of my computers. A lot of times with the screen being shrunk down, it's very difficult to click on what you're intending to click on with just a finger versus something as precise as the tip of this. So it does a very good job in that regard. Now, if you're using this with an Apple iPad Pro versus just a standard iPad, which is now an option with the 2018 iPad, which is what I have, my biggest gripe with it for drawing is actually that the screen is not laminated. So, where the iPad Pro, it feels like you're actually drawing on the surface. With the standard iPad, it actually feels like you are lifted off the screen. So if you're not a person that looks dead center at what you're drawing and you look off to the side, it actually looks like where you're pushing on the screen and where the digital ink is coming out are in two separate spots. So it's kind of, hit or miss, I think, with the drawing. But definitely for just general use, I love it. I find myself pulling this out just for everything now. And it also keeps my my iPad from smudging and showing as much grease marks from the fingers because I'm not touching it quite as much. So that's something that's cool. Another thing is the battery on this easily goes all day for me, and I'm not using it constantly usually. I'm going kind of back and forth, but easily I can get all day out of this. The only way that you're not going to get a full day out of this is if you're just purely drawing the entire time. And actually, one of the biggest uses I found for this was on photo editing. So if I'm editing like a family shot that I've taken, this is really good for getting a precise crop on a picture. So if you want to put a different background in, this does an awesome job. You can zoom way up on a picture and get it perfectly cut out. So that is pretty cool. So even if you're not artistic, there are quite a few purposes that this does an excellent job with. The other kind of cool thing is that these tips are removable, and I didn't actually really fully know that, so that's what it looks like, until one day this just seemed to not work, and I thought maybe the battery was dead, but the battery was fully charged, and it turned out that this tip had just loosened up a little bit. So if you ever find yourself with that issue, first just try to tighten this back up a little bit, make sure it's snug, and it'll probably fix your issue. Going to the other end is a magnetic cover. So it's just held on with a magnet, and this actually charges through the iPad or a separate adapter that comes with the Apple Pencil. And then you can use any lightning charge cable to charge it. For some reason, every time I plug this into my iPad, it just never seems to go in quite smoothly. And charging through the iPad, I also worry that with the amount that this hangs out, that it's actually going to break off at some point. So as you can see, all right, so you have to have it perfectly aligned. It just doesn't seem to connect quite as easily as it does going through a regular lightning charge cord. But if you're using your iPad and this is opened up, if anybody knocks this at all, it is going to break something. It's just going to bend it. It's going to break it. So I do not recommend charging this way unless it's an emergency. So if you're in the middle of a class or a meeting and you're taking notes and you lose battery, that's an option for you. But I would not always charge it that way. No matter how careful you are, I just feel like that's going to be something that ends up breaking off in the long run. So the other thing I noticed that's kind of a con with this is that it actually, even though I'm not using it and I just keep it in my case, it's on and connected via Bluetooth at all times. I find the battery drains at this thing, or with this thing, even if I'm not using it. So if it's connected to the iPad, I can watch it tick down. So I find myself charging this even if I haven't used it for a few days. So that's kind of something to keep in mind, and maybe that'll be something that's fixed with future updates. But just something to be aware of. So I'll give you some brief drawing examples of what this looks like. Alright, so as you can see, we've got this fully charged. We're at 100%. So if you do a left swipe from the main screen, that's how you can tell what you've got for a battery percentage. So if we scroll back here, what we're going to do is I'm going to show you in notes kind of what this looks like. So if we go to the pen option, we have different colors we can select through, which is cool. And then also you can do more of a marker or a pen. And I don't find the lag to be any sort of an issue. Again, the only gripe would be, and I'm going to see if I can actually get this on camera for you guys, is how, again with that screen, how it doesn't exactly look like you are touching the screen. And again, I'm not sure how well that's going to be picked up on camera, but there is a definite feeling of somewhat of a disconnect there. But if you're using this for more precise control over certain apps or drawing programs, so here for like LumaFusion, again, this is one that I like the control. I use my fingers, to zoom up and get more precise over an element. But it works really good for stuff like this. And again, they don't have any sort of functionality to be able to swipe from the side, to get an app to move over or to bring this lower tray up like you would be able to with your finger. So that's something that's a little bit disappointing, but the cool thing is that this can actually do updates. So I'm going to show you how this actually will plug in and what you get. So we plug it in, and if we go back here, it shows we are charging. Now, if you go into settings, you can actually see the firmware version is 2.48. So that tells me if this thing ever does get updated, this is a good spot to go to see what the update is. Overall, I would say it's worth it. For $100, you really can't go wrong. It is, it's one of those things where it's more of a novelty, I would say. And yes, can you get away with just using your fingers on something like an iPad? Absolutely. But definitely as far as photo editing goes, this is a must-have. If you're an illustrator, a must-have. If you like handwritten notes, it's awesome. I use OneNote and it works very well with that. The problem is if you don't have really good handwriting, OneNote will not be able to search your notes if they're handwritten. So for me, I can type faster and I can write. So I found the notes are not actually that useful with the Apple Pencil. So, but I did find a lot of other uses that I mentioned that I do like about it. So thank you for watching the video. Please subscribe for more and let me know if you have any questions. Thank you.